All right, Nick, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. The Lions are looking really good right now. I think they're back on a roll. This team looks pretty consistent across the board, but if you scrutinize, you look and you poke holes in this roster, there are a couple of options for upgrades and some recent news in the NFL sphere that I think would be very interesting to Lions fans. We'll get into that in just 1 second here, but first, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, some recent news in the NFL world from some, very credible sources saying something that I think Lions fans may find very interesting. Let's get into this first tweet. We'll get into some information afterwards, just saying how this could be prevalent for the Lions. So, first up, we have a tweet over on X from Ian Rappaport at Rapsheet on X, and it says, with the Seahawks star cornerback Devon Witherspoon returning on Thursday, teams are monitoring Pro Bowl cornerback Tariq Woolen as a possible trade target deadline, sources tell the insiders. Woolen's playing time has diminished in a contract year. Teams believe he could be available. So we all know just a few years removed, Tariq Woolen, one of the hottest cornerbacks, in the NFL, an interception machine. The guy was doing a lot of great work and now potentially going to be on the market from Ian Rappaport. Again, like I said, a very credible source when it comes to this stuff. If he's saying something, there is some merit to what is being said. But let's see, how does this really line up with the Lions' needs? I think there's another interesting article here from A to Z Sports. It says Lions should be dreaming big, which they should, after a strong start to the season, but attrition is the same culprit that taxed this roster so badly down the stretch last year as it is again. The Lions' secondary has seen injuries spring up for both veteran cornerbacks DJ Reed and young starter Terrion Arnold. It sounds like Reed's injury will potentially cost him some time, and we'll get more information on that likely on Monday or Wednesday. That applies the same to Arnold's, although it seems the Lions don't consider that a major issue, which is good. As for the Lions roster, they have Amik Robertson, who played quite well outside last year, and even in this game, although he allowed a 35-yard catch the moment he took over. Also, Rocky San has been a starter here and there. Avonte Maddox can play anywhere in the secondary. Lions don't have any corners on their practice squad, so it wouldn't be a shock if they tried out some players this week or maybe made a phone call or two. So it seems like if you look at all the data, information, injuries, if the Lions are serious about taking this all the way, trying to make a big-time Super Bowl run, they're going to need some help at the cornerback position. And if we look at the data and we just see their grades here, you can kind of see defensively, this is a strong unit. I have their grades up in front of me right here. You see, this is one of the tougher defenses in the NFL. They've got a lot of really great stuff, but there's a glaring weakness right at the end there. I've highlighted it with that yellow circle. Their coverage grade has not been great this season. It's been the weakness of the defense. There hasn't been many weaknesses, but coverage has been one that has been a little bit of a downfall for them, so to speak, and it really becomes more prevalent. Let's take a look at their PFF grades across the roster. Great. Muhammad, Hutchinson, all those guys look great. Linebackers, safeties look great. But if you look at the corner position, their lowest grades by far, Arnold 48.1, Robinson has a 52.9, and Dorsey a 55.3. So they need some help at the cornerback position. I think the option to get a guy like Tariq Woolen could be a big time get for this Lions team. Hopefully being able to utilize him better than the Seahawks have been this year. The Lions, we've seen what they've done. They've had guys come in and really get a lot of interceptions, have the opportunity to be really superstars on this defense. Remember, just a few years ago, Kirby Joseph was grabbing interceptions left and right as well. This is a team that I think could benefit from this news, and this is one I would definitely keep an eye out on if I'm a Lions fan. Tariq Woolen, Detroit Lions, I don't think it's too far off, and I think it's a real possibility as we approach the trade deadline. Curious what your thoughts are on all of this, Nick. But before we get to you, Lions fans, in the comment section below, it's that time of year. We're talking about how can this team be upgraded? What are we looking for as the trade deadline approaches? What do teams need to be serious playoff contenders? I mentioned cornerback. That's something that we think about here. What do you think? Is there any other positions of need, any other trades, any other things? Maybe a player that you think the Lions should trade. What are you thinking could benefit this team going forward? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on everything here for the Lions?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I know now is the time of the year where trade rumors tend to circulate, but I feel like this one has a little bit of juice behind it. Like you mentioned, Ian Rappaport talking about Tariq Woolen being on the block for the Seattle Seahawks. Rappaport, obviously one of the top reporters in the National Football League, so I think it's a high likelihood that he will be traded. And there's a couple of clear suitors, right? And the Lions are certainly one of them. And if you're Detroit, if you're Holmes, you got to make a really tough decision here. And I think there's a lot of reasons why people are clamoring, and there is actual a sort of a connection here with this potential deal or maybe some other deal in front of the Detroit Lions, because this is a football team that coming into the season, a lot of people, the so-called experts, were saying, Ben Johnson gone, Aaron Glenn gone. This team is going to look a lot worse than we've seen in years past. Week one, oh, it's the Packers' time to shine. Well, guess what? The Lions have had three straight really impressive victories. The Packers have had back-to-back not great performances, right? And now Detroit looks like the best team in that division once again, and they look like, along with the Rams, along with the Philadelphia Eagles, the three best teams in the NFC. But the problem with Detroit, as the article you quoted alluded to, is that they've had the injury bug, certainly the second half of last season. Now, every team has injuries, right? The Lions had a lot more than some other teams. I think they finished like the third or second most injuries in all of the National Football League by the time it was all said and done. But the reality is every team has injuries, which means every team is going to be looking for an opportunity to fix them, especially if they view themselves as a contender. Another potential team in play here when it comes to Tariq Woolen is the Green Bay Packers. Like I mentioned, this Packers defense that was supposed to be the best in football got absolutely eviscerated by the Dallas Cowboys, down three offensive linemen and their best receiver, CeeDee Lamb, and Prescott carved them up, right, for 40 points on prime time. Green Bay is going to be making some calls. The question here is for Detroit and for Holmes is, how good do you think you are? If you're actually a team, and I think they believe they are, and I think they are a team that can win the Super Bowl this year, I think you have to make this trade. I think they're about to make a trade or some kind of deal to help out their defense. I think they saw what happened last season, and they honestly believed, and I think there was reason to believe, that Aaron Glenn and the veterans they did have available could find a way with a high-powered offense to pull that team to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we saw in the divisional round last year, it just isn't enough. At a certain point, you play a hot offense, you play a hot quarterback, the injuries rear their ugly head, and you just can't get enough stops. I think that's what happened with Detroit last year, and I don't think Holmes, I don't think Campbell are going to let it happen again. I think they're going to make a big deal over the coming days and weeks to upgrade this defense with just some veteran depth, right? It's one thing to rely on young guys to step up, but you need some veterans. I think Tariq Woolen is the guy. Remember, he's had kind of a down year this year, but he had 6 picks his rookie season. He's an experienced guy. He's got good physical tools. He's got good ball skills. Is he an elite corner? Do you add him to your roster, and does it immediately make your cornerback room top notch? No, but he is a competent corner who has the ability to make big plays. And when you get down to depth guys late in the postseason and late in the regular season, that's what it comes down to. It's hard getting stops. Takeaways and key deflections and pass breakups, that's how you win games come postseason time. The Detroit Lions, due to the injuries at defensive back and frankly across their entire defense last season, couldn't get enough of those, or frankly any of those, when it came time to the divisional round. I think adding a guy like Tariq Woolen will help them accomplish that goal. And look, to be fair, the Detroit Lions saw this coming when they got DJ Reed, right? They added DJ Reed into the fold, I think, as an upgrade in the cornerback room to try and solve some of these problems, right? They made a clear, concerted effort this offseason to try and get a little bit better at defensive back, adding some veteran experience. And now, unfortunately, injuries have come up. But you cannot be, sitting on your laurels here, sitting on your hands. And I don't think Brad Holmes will be. I think he's going to be very aggressive. And whether it's Tariq Woolen or somebody else, I think a trade or some kind of free agent signing is coming to the Lions. Now, Asante Samuel Jr. is still out there. That's a name that's kind of been floating around for a while. A lot of people look at Stephon Gilmore as a corner guy, a free agent. I think Tariq Woolen makes more sense because he's a guy that's played football this season today. It's one thing if you wanted, say, a Gilmore to come off the bench and just say we need some veteran depth just because, our backup corner got hurt. But the Lions are starting to lose some starters. They need some guys that have played this season and have been put in tough spots this season. Tariq Woolen hasn't played great football, but he stepped up and actually played legitimate football against top flight receivers so far in 2025. Guys like Gilmore and guys like Asante Samuel Jr. have not. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and trade for Tariq Woolen and maybe even add Gilmore just to be safe, right? It's one of these things. You are in the middle of a championship window. A trade for a guy like Woolen, who again is on the last year of his deal, it doesn't sacrifice the future. It gives you an opportunity to chase in a championship and keep the core of the team in place. And like we talked about last week when it comes to Dan Campbell, the genius of this team and the power behind this team is the head coach and it is the GM. So they're in a good position here. I think the one problem they could run into with these injuries is if they play a hot quarterback, if they play a Stafford, or they play another just guy gunslinger who's just kill them in the postseason, and they drop a playoff game they should win. That's just another opportunity. And the reality is you get only so many bites at the apple until you eventually just have to rebuild and reload the entire roster. It's just the fact of life in the National Football League, right? You can sit there and just, oh, we're great now. We've been great last year. We've been great the year before that. We'll be great forever. Lions fans, I mean, these things come in cycles. You got a great chance here, a great opportunity in an NFC that, look, let's be honest here. It's very winnable. The Eagles are undefeated, but every single game they've been in, they could have easily lost, right? The Green Bay Packers look like world beaters after 2 games, and then they blew it to the Browns and to play the Dallas Cowboys, a very average to below average team, to be totally honest, to a dead standstill, right? You look at the Rams, they're a feisty team, but they've got their flaws. The 49ers are beat up. I mean, the list goes on and on here when you look at this entire NFC, that this is a great opportunity right here for the Lions. I think they should capitalize on it, and I think they will. Don't be surprised, Detroit fans, when they pull off. I think it's this trade personally. I think it's Tariq Woolen, but if it's not Woolen, I think they make at least one big move to address the cornerback position.
Yeah, Nick, and a couple more stats I got here just to kind of finalize the picture for Lions fans here. We look about a few years ago, 2023 season, where the team was on the edge of breaking out. They're doing some really good things, but that year did a 51.6 coverage grade, which is not great. We look what made the biggest difference to last season, where this team was very, very strong, contenders all the way down the stretch. What were they looking like there? 79.7 coverage grade there. They made a huge jump. Concerted effort, looked much, much better. Now this year, they're starting to slip a little. They're not bad. They're an 11th in the NFL in coverage grade, 63.7. But like we saw a couple of years ago, really not looking great at coverage. Weren't quite as serious of a contender. Last year, super serious contender. One of the premier teams in the NFL. Everyone thought this was the team to beat. And they had a really great coverage grade. They just need to bump it up a little bit. They need to be able to not be, like you said, a couple injuries roll through. You cannot have string cheese out there on the field. We got to be able to, have a defense that can put up some fight. You have to have guys like Woolen be able to come in off the bench. And I really love that point is there's some older guys who haven't really played much football. You need someone who can come in and is used to, they could play a whole game. They could play the rest of the season for you if they needed to. You don't want to have a guy that's going to come in and, you like, all right, we're going to use him for the playoffs. We're going to be able to see him, time and time. We're going to have to get him up to speed. No, you want someone to come in and be valuable now. And that's what Tariq Woolen is, a guy that's played valuable snaps this year. He has the capability. His ceiling is very high. And I think this is a Lions team, like you said, they could really, if they are serious, they need to capitalize on a move like this.
And just one final point on why I think Tariq Woolen is the move, and I think they'll go after Tariq Woolen or someone of that ilk as opposed to a Stephon Gilmore, is you look at the incentive structures, right? Tariq Woolen is still a young player. He's got his whole career in front of him on a contract year, right? So he's trying to make the most money, take advantage of any opportunity he can. Gilmore at this point, listen, he's at the end of his career. It was a great career, but he's at the end of it, right? How motivated is he in terms of making sure he gives everything and then some, going the extra mile and then some? Tariq Woolen is incredibly motivated, right? He's got millions of dollars in the balance. That's a strong motivator. Gilmore, not so much. This is probably his last hurrah, or a guy like Gilmore. So I think Tariq Woolen, a guy who has experience in a contract year, who's played football this season, who is available, who has a ball hawking background, seems like a great fit for the Lions. And don't be surprised, Detroit fans. I really think we're going to see Brad Holmes make a move. If it's not for Tariq Woolen, it's going to be something like that, because they're going to need some extra depth, extra pieces in their secondary to make sure what happened in the postseason last year doesn't repeat itself in 2025.